Welcome to School Choice Report, where we explore everything about one of the most important education topics. I'm your host, David Hardy. In this podcast, we'll be talking to experts, educators, and parents to get a deep dive into the world of school choice. Whether you're an advocate, skeptic, or just curious, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get started with the conversation. This week, our guest is Keisha Jordan, who runs the Philadelphia Children's Scholarship Fund and is a veteran of school choice battles for many, many years. Keisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. And, I've been by your side in those battles for many years.
Oh, yeah. It's a long time. So you got quite the resume. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. How you started in this, how we met each other.
Yeah. So I started out my career as a child advocate attorney with the Defender Association of Philadelphia, and I represented abused and neglected kids. And so what I saw is that, by the time kids got into that system, they were already so far into the experience of neglect. Education was also lacking. I really wanted to do something more preventative so that I could help before kids got into this situation, right? So I got connected to nonprofit work and ended up being the first executive director of a new organization called the Philadelphia Black Alliance for Educational Options, which was an organization that came from a national level to Philadelphia to inform parents about what their options were to low-performing public schools. And at the time, this was about 1999, 2000, there was probably 5 charter schools, no tax credit program, very few options. Probably the best options were some of the district options like magnet schools or transfers. And so we had a real impact. And along the way, I heard about this amazing guy named Dave Hardy, who I had to get on my board. And so, that's how we met. We were together on the front lines back in those days, advocating for families to have more access to charter schools. And around that time, also, the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program started.
You had a scholarship program back then.
Yes. So BAYO was one of the first tax credit scholarship organizations, along with Children's Scholarship Fund Philadelphia. And we were also really active in advocacy back then, right, to try to grow the program. And we would bring parents to Harrisburg. And so I feel like we had a big impact together in those early days.
Well, when I started Boys Latin, one of my biggest means of support was from BAYO, and both Philadelphia BAYO and National BAYO. We were a BAYO Gate school when we started. So, and there is no national African American organization that supports school choice right now, and I think that's a big void.
I think you're right. Nationally, and then, I think that there's way more we can do in Pennsylvania, as well. And, we need that.
Well, you're with the Children's Scholarship Fund of Philadelphia. What do they do, and who do you serve?
Yeah. So we've been around for about 22 years. We are the largest kindergarten through 8th grade private school scholarship program in the state of Pennsylvania. We are primarily funded through the state's EITC and OSTC programs. And what we do is to provide partial tuition scholarships primarily to families who live in Philadelphia's lowest performing public school neighborhoods so that they can choose a high quality and safe school for their children. And so we've served about 30,000 students over the course of CSFP's life. This year, we are serving 5,800 students. We just last year launched the Breaking Barriers campaign, which is aimed at serving more students longer. So we are now providing scholarships fully all the way up through 8th grade for families. And we are also adding 2,000 new students every year. So our goal is to grow to serving 7,700 students by 2027. So we're very excited about that.
And you said you're funded by EITC and OSTC money. Tell us a little bit.
Yes. So those are state programs run through the Department of Community and Economic Development. As of last year, we were at about $340,000 through those programs combined. And those programs allow businesses and now individuals to make a gift to a scholarship organization like CSFP or to an educational improvement organization like Boys Latin. And then they receive a tax credit of up to 90% of that gift. So, as you know, this is a very popular program from the donor standpoint because donors can have a huge impact. And then, of course, from the scholarship organization and parent standpoint, it allows us to raise a lot more money than we could through just private donations. So it's a great program, Dave. It's never enough. Last year, something like 70,000 students who couldn't get scholarships through this program because there's just so much more demand.
Give me that number again.
About 70,000, I believe, students who throughout the state who applied but could not get scholarships.
70,000 Pennsylvania children were looking for funding for alternative to their public education, and they got turned away. That's a lot of children.
It is. So, we do our best with what we have right now, Dave. I mean, we're trying to raise more money every year, but, we also need for our legislature and all of our elected officials to understand that if we really want students to achieve in the state, in particular, the students who live in neighborhoods with low-performing schools, we can't just wait for public education to improve. We know that's going to take time. We need options now so that students aren't staying in low-performing schools for even, one more day, let alone 1 more year, 2 more years. And so, as part of our work, we also help to educate the public about the benefit of scholarships. And I would be remiss, Dave, if I didn't say that CSFP has some amazing outcomes now that we're 22 years old.
You beat me to the punch because that was my next question. Tell us about those outcomes because they're pretty impressive.
Thank you. So we see that our 7th graders are performing at or above the national average in both math and reading. And that's not just compared to economically disadvantaged students. And I should mention, of course, through this program, our students are economically disadvantaged. Average household income, $42,000 per year. Right. So that's in comparison to all students.
Wow.
So we're very proud of that.
That's an amazing statistic.
Yeah.
Because you look at the MAP scores, 7th graders took it in the chin.
Yeah.
Lord.
Exactly. So we're seeing that our students are being accepted to the high-performing schools of choice for high school. So 93% are going to private schools and getting scholarships. They're getting into magnet schools. They're going to the in-demand charter schools. We're seeing that our students are graduating high school on time at 99%. And now that we've been around for a while, we're also seeing that our students are going to college at higher rates than their peers. So we're seeing that as 2021, CSFP students were graduating and going to college at a rate of 64%. And in comparison at the school district to something like 54%, it's a much smaller rate of
54%. And that, if you take out the magnet schools, that number's pretty low. I mean, and it's not the children. You can't get a 3rd or 4th year of a foreign language in a lot of those schools. You can't get the science and math that you need at those schools. It is a dearth of educational resources that need to be in these schools, and that's why kids do poorly. And the whole idea of having somewhere else to go, another way to get that education, is so important. And what you're doing is so important.
Thank you, Dave. It's actually worse than what I quoted. I just looked real quick at 2021. where our alumni graduated and went to college at 66%. It was 45% in the school district. So, when you look at 5,800 students who we're serving, and you think about the schools that they came from, if they didn't have a chance to go somewhere else, what would the outcomes be, right? I mean, so organizations like ours who have the results, it's so important for us to communicate that so that the impact of scholarships is known and there's a recognition that these efforts need to be expanded.
Before we have a lot of elected officials here who don't seem to get this message. Why do you think that is?
I think one, just maybe a lack of education, honestly. We recently created some infographics showing some of our affiliate legislators just how many students receive scholarships in their district and how much money is coming into those districts for those students. And people were blown away. But even more so, Dave, some of them didn't even know who we were. They didn't even know that CSFP existed and that all of this money was being funneled into schools in their district for students who they serve. So, I think one, it's lack of education. I also think that there's, and that I'm a Democrat, and, Democrat elected officials tend to advocate more for public school funding, right? And so that's where they go. That's where their support is. And, I do believe that we need high quality public schools. Absolutely. But what they also need to understand is the plight of that parent who is told over and over again to just wait. Things are going to get better. Just wait. We're going to put more money in. There will be more resources. And every year, their child is stuck in a low-performing school where they're not learning. For the students who we serve, the Philadelphia students who are in that bottom 15% of public schools neighborhoods, last year, math scores were only at 4% proficiency at the elementary level. Reading, 18% proficiency. Students are not learning. And so, I think we've got to make it clearer on an individual basis for families in this situation that this is dire, this is urgent. You and I and anybody else who had the ability to send their kids to the schools they want, we would never tolerate anybody telling us, just wait, just wait. So why should someone who can't afford private school education or to move have to just wait? And so I think that's what we've got to really communicate to our legislators and what they've got to hear too.
They've got to hear it. And here's something else. I'm tired of people blaming the children and their families. And I see this on Facebook a lot with my friends. And when you say something about school, somebody will chime in, but the kids or the parents, and I'm, first of all, I wonder where they get this information. Because first of all, if somebody comes in and they're angry about the school, you have to at least ask them what they're angry about. Some of these people have legitimate reasons to be upset. Some of these people have multi-generational reasons to be upset with the school districts that they live in.
Yeah.
So to act like someone who comes into a school and snaps out at that it's all their fault. No. And I don't hear anybody saying that we're going to make things better. I think I hear people saying we found something else wrong with the kids that we're going to address.
No.
But I don't hear them saying we're going to improve that 18% reading score,
right,
or that 4% math proficiency. Nobody makes those kinds of commitments.
Right. I mean, there's real kids behind that data. And, we're talking about numbers and data, but then what does that mean on a daily basis? That means kids are frustrated, parents are frustrated. Often there are safety issues that are just as relevant to families as the academic issues. And I'll tell you what, I've got 5,800 students and their parents who are making a huge financial sacrifice to go to private schools 37% of our families have income levels below the federal poverty level. Everybody pays at least $500. $500 is a lot
of money. Yeah.
When we make $24,000 a year with 2 kids. So, we cannot at all blame parents are doing the best that they can, and they need resources. They need help.
Well, I mean, you got 2 beautiful girls. I know you. We know our families, and I mean, just imagine looking at your child and knowing that you're sending them to a place that's not helping them. I mean, that's just.
I know. I mean,
that's got to be terrible,
Dave. Like that drives me. The idea that another mom, and 66% of our families are led by single parents, right? By single moms, that you would have to send your child every day to a school that's not safe, where they're not learning, because you can't afford private school. You can't afford to move. That's devastating. And, when I talk to people about what we do, and I try to draw on a child in their life. And even if you're not a parent, you love some child. Don't you do the best for your child? We all do. Everybody wants the best for their child. And that's even more important when you're a family that is affected by intergenerational poverty. What do you want more than anything? To stop the cycle, to give your child a chance. We all want our kids to do better than we do, right? And so why are we holding that opportunity back? Because we know education is the way for these kids to see success.
The Lifeline Scholarship, you know a little bit about the Lifeline Scholarship. What would that do for the communities that you serve?
Mm-hmm. So Lifeline was a program that's been introduced 2 times. It's basically an educational savings account, which many states have effectively. And what it would do is to give families in Philadelphia's or in Pennsylvania's lowest performing school neighborhoods the opportunity to send their children to the private school of their choice. And it specifically would benefit families in those low performing schools with those outcomes we talk about, and also families who have lower incomes and couldn't otherwise afford it. And so, as we know, it's not going to happen for this school year. Unfortunately, there was not the support for it. But, what it could have done is to give thousands more students the opportunity that CSFP students will have. And, we turn away students, unfortunately. Like, we can't give scholarships to everybody who applies. So all of those families who are not receiving scholarships because there's too much demand and not enough resources, it would have given them a chance to do the same thing that our scholarships would do. Another thing that would happen with Lifeline is that families would be able to receive both a scholarship through CSFP or other organizations and Lifeline. So they would have even more funding to choose the quality school of their choice. That's one of my favorite things.
That's big.
The program.
I didn't know that. That's big.
So like for a CSFP family at K-8, if they receive $5,000 through Lifeline, they could also receive $3,200 from us, and they'd have $8,200 towards a private school. Well, that's a lot of leverage, and I love nothing more than a family who otherwise could not afford that to come in the door with $8,200 every year and say, I've got a talented child who should be part of your school community. That would really be embraced.
What would also happen to that, and they don't talk about it much, is that it would allow people to create new schools.
Yeah.
I think about the school that used to be in Philly, Ivy Leaf School.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
Which is a small private school, very well regarded.
Yeah.
And when the charters came along, and they were free, kind of made that little out of reach. So if there was something like a Lifeline scholarship available, that school will still be open. I think the same way about Clara Muhammad. That was a very good school, but couldn't keep the doors open. And low-income people don't get a chance to send their kids to religious schools because they can't afford it. And that doesn't seem right to me. And the other thing is that there are people like the people who had Ivy Leaf, like Marva Collins out in Chicago, people who are excellent educators who create small schools in neighborhoods and do a whole lot of good if they had the funding behind it. So this isn't just giving kids a way out. It's also giving people a way to create new schools that would more effectively serve their communities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it would also support some of those smaller schools. Sometimes those smaller schools are having the biggest impact that serve lower income students and do a tremendous job at it. Yeah, I think there's a stereotype that all private schools are elite, that they've got unlimited resources, that they serve wealthy kids, and that is just not true. We partner with 160 different schools, and those are schools that are doing a great job at supporting students from lower income households. They're getting our outcomes are their outcomes, Dave, right? I mean, they're the ones who, we give students the chance to go, but they're actually the ones who are achieving those outcomes. And they struggle without tuition, right? I mean, how often do we know those schools likely go, allow a student to stay, even though maybe the family's having a hard time, right? So it also would support those quality schools.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm still amazed that I find small schools. Like I didn't know about Hunting Park Christian Academy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I just kind of ran into it, and what a great little school, serving, doing a great job, and private, and people are paying. But how much work could they do if you had money behind children walking in the door?
Yes, exactly. I mean, when we talk about replicating models that work, those are the models that work. Let programs like this give kids a chance to go to schools that work, that are achieving those outcomes, and letting parents achieve their dreams for their kids.
Well, as you know, the Lifeline Scholarship is kind of in limbo right now, and we've been told it's going to work its way through the Harrisburg, through the legislature. What do you say to the elected officials out there who have to make a decision on this? What do you want to tell them about the people who need something like this?
Yeah, I want to tell them to be courageous and to do what they know is right. Elected officials, I'm speaking specifically to those in Philadelphia, they know that the charters and the private schools in their districts are doing a better job at educating kids in their neighborhoods than the public schools, right? We need more courageous people who are going to stand up and say, I support these types of programs. Yes, we should be trying to improve public education, but in the meantime, I'm not going to require kids in my district to wait until they've darn near graduated, So think about the students in your district. Think about what is working in your district, and programs like this, like the tax credit program and Lifeline, that can give students in your district a chance to achieve. The families who voted for the elected officials in office want this. They want it. Their constituents want it. So let's focus on what's best for kids. That should be the number one priority. We need more courageous people. And I know that some folks are unhappy with Governor Shapiro right now because he's, waffled a bit. But he was courageous enough to say, I support this program. You don't usually hear a Democrat saying that, and I'm still glad that there's someone in the governor's office who's a Democrat who does support it. And he's not saying now that he doesn't support it anymore. He's just saying, I can't get it through because the legislature is in such strong opposition. So that's where we need to focus our work, on the legislature, to get them to do what they know is right.
That's it for today's episode of School Choice Report. I hope you found the conversation enlightening and informative. If you have any feedback, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, please reach out to us at schoolchoicereport.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. Until next time, this is David Hardy signing off. Thanks for tuning in.